What is up, ladies and gentlemen of the online Jamily? This, of course, here's Jamiroquai 2000 with another episode of the Beginner's Guide to Jamiroquai. This will be episode 3 of this series. And given the recent influx of new music fans into the online Jamily, either from the recurring Jamiroquai memes ecosystem or the purely from music discovery, I thought it was the right time to record and produce a new post-series to help those new fans get an introduction to Jamiroquai from the past and present history of the band, from musical influences to band members of past and present, to further enrich their exploration of over 30 years of Jamiroquai music making. In this episode 3, I'm going to be talking about the old and current band members of Jamiroquai and their contribution to Jamiroquai's music and to their influences is absolutely invaluable over the last 30 years of the band's history. So here in section 1, I'm going to be talking about the past old band members of Jamiroquai. Jamiroquai, as is aforementioned on the onset of this episode, has had a lot of band members embolden and making valuable contributions to the band. First off, here are some of the earliest band members of Jamiroquai that were only tenured for the first studio album of Jamiroquai's history. Of course, I'm talking about 1993's Emergency on Planet Earth. Percussionists Kofi Karikari, Maurizio Ravalico, the Reggae Philharmonic Strings, backup vocalists like Linda Lewis and Vanessa Simon, rest in peace Linda Lewis, and guitarists Gavin Dodd, Simon Bartholomew, and Glenn Nightingale. Some of the other highlight band members during the first and couple of the first Jamiroquai albums of the era of Jamiroquai was, of course, drummer Nick Van Gelder, who ultimately left the band after work on Jamiroquai's first album, Mercy on Planet Earth. Guitarist Simon Katz, Yidok Key and didgeridoo player Wallace Buchanan, who stayed around with the band until 1999's album Synchronized. Turntable wizard DJ Desire, who stuck around with Jamiroquai up to the year of 2000. Influential bassist Stuart Zender, who would be with the band, redefining the importance of bass lines in Jamiroquai's music until his departure, unfortunately, from the band in 1999. And finally, keyboardist and composer Toby Smith, who heavily influenced the instrumental and, of course, the groove side of Jamiroquai's early acid jazzy roots of Jamiroquai's core sound. J.K.'s right-hand man songwriting partner, who would later on amicably leave the band Jamiroquai to pursue music producing and new artist development in the year of 2002. But unfortunately, Toby Smith of Jamiroquai would unfortunately pass away in the year 2017 due to complications from cancer. And there were also some other band members who made impacts in Jamiroquai's music and would end up leaving later in the discography of Jamiroquai, and then or would ultimately come working on and off with the band Jamiroquai. Some of the names that come to mind is trombonist Winston Rollins and other brass section members, saxophone flutist Gary Barnacle, trombonist Richard Edwards, and trumpist Johnny Thurkel. Now, the multi-instrumentalist Nate Williams and Howard Whitted would join Jamiroquai during the 2017 to 2020 Automaton album era, would end up moving on to other music projects. Another bassist that came and joined Jamiroquai, of course, was Nick Fife, who was there to replace Stuart Zender after his departure from Jamiroquai in 1999, and later on he would leave Jamiroquai in the 2004 period to pursue other musical projects, including the formation of his own band called the Temperance Movement. And there are many other artists who contributed to Jamiroquai sounds, from composers of strings to incidental musicians, for the entirety of the 8 albums of the Jamiroquai discography. And everyone's input into making Jamiroquai's music will be greatly remembered and appreciated. Now let's move on to the current lineup of Jamiroquai's band. And like I prefaced at the beginning of this episode of the Beginner's Guide to Jamiroquai, the Jamiroquai band lineup has changed dramatically over the last 30 years. In this section, we're going to be talking about the current band lineup for Jamiroquai's live performances and their studio work as of their last album, 2017's Automaton. Derek McKenzie was born in Islington, North London in 1964. As his mother would not buy him a drum kit, he learned to play at home using chairs and telephone books. Derek joined the band for the second album, The Return of the Space Cowboy. Already a fan of Mercy on Planet Earth album, a friend set him up for an audition as a drummer when Nick Van Gelder, the original drummer of Jamiroquai left back in 1993. 6.5 hours after his second audition in January 1994, he got the part, and the rest is history. Sola Akimbala joined the band in early 1995 as the previous band percussionist, of course, Maurizio Ravalco, left the band. Sola had just finished up touring with Ronnie Jordan and was in between tours. Derek had heard some of Sola and contacted him and went around to his house to talk and listen to some records. After a couple of hours, Derek's convinced him, and they all went back to tell the band that they should bring Sola on board. Sola did not have an audition, but he joined the band almost immediately, and the rest, like with Derek, is history. Rob Harris joined Jamiroquai as a guitarist in April 2000 after 2 auditions. After many late nights learning and rehearsing their tunes prior to the auditions, Jay asked Rob to join the band and has instantly become one of the core members, with having co-writing credits on a number of Jamiroquai tracks on the Funk Odyssey and the later Jamiroquai albums Dynamite, Rock to Slystar, and Automaton. Keyboardist Matt Johnson joined Jamiroquai on May 2nd of 2002, replacing the founding keyboardist and composer, of course, Toby Smith, who ended up moving on to music production and becoming a producer. Johnson also had a stint as a chief songwriting officer and producer, along with Jamiroquai bandmate guitarist Rob Harris, for singer-songwriter Julian Peretta, who was also helping him to write his debut album Stitch Me Up, which was released in the year of 2010. Johnson produced and co-wrote songs for the group's 2017 album Automaton with his bandmate, of course, J.K. Bassist Paul Turner joined the jazz funk band Jamiroquai back in 2005 and has co-written and recorded and performed live with the band ever since. As well as Jamiroquai, he's also known for playing with Annie Lennox over the last few years. He also formed a soulful jazz funk band called Tronic with Jamiroquai bandmates Rob Harris and Iwan Van Hetten. And, of course, can't forget the backup singers of Jamiroquai, that they're, namely called the Jamirettes. They are the backup singing corps of Jamiroquai for the latter albums of their discography, comprised of the talented female vocalists Valley Ention, El Cato, and Hazel Fernandez, who helped flesh out Jamiroquai's vocal range on their album work and their live performances in the live venue. Finally, we come to the matriarch of Jamiroquai, J.K., who was born Jason Louis Cheatham on December 30th, 1969, is a British funk and alternative rock singer-songwriter. He is best known as the co-founder and lead singer of the acid jazz funk band Jamiroquai, which was formed in 1992. Kay is also well known for his wide array of elaborate hats and headgear. Professional appearances for concerts, interviews have also prompted descriptions of Kay as the Mad Hatter for his love of headgear. Kay is also an avid exotic car enthusiast and has a massive car collection, which he's been buying and selling over the last decade. Always the environmentalist and activist, J.K.'s melodic style of songwriting, complemented by the late Toby Smith, Matt Johnson, and many more aforementioned musicians and artists, have kept Jamiroquai's music with a very modern, relevant look, groundbreaking on a cautionary sense, and kept them as one of the constant luminaries of the pop mainstream for going over now 30 years. There's at least for the sake of this episode a discussionary sampling of all the amazing This is, of course, a discussionary sampling of all the amazing and highly talented former and current band members of Jamiroquai that started, maintained, and kept the band going for all this time. I hope you have time to explore all these artists aforementioned in this episode of the Beginner's Guide to Jamiroquai, who helped and made invaluable contributions either on an instrumental sense or in a compositional sense to Jamiroquai's music. And I hope, and to quote J.K. from the Traveling Without Moving liner notes in regards to all these amazing musicians that helped contribute to Jamiroquai's music over the last 30 years, they are a bunch of diamonds. And I hope you enjoyed this episode 3 of the Beginner's Guide to Jamiroquai. And coming up in part 4 of the Beginner's Guide of Jamiroquai, I'm going to be looking at the albums and single releases and their meanings and their significance in the amazing 30-year discography of Jamiroquai. And we'll be deep diving into all these 8 amazingly intricate, diverse albums of Jamiroquai over the past 30 years, which were examinations of humanity, planet Earth, and a lot of future pondering for all of us. Thank you again, everybody, for the support, and I hope you enjoy this series. And be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to ding the bell on your YouTube to stay up to date on all the latest content coming from the Jamir 2000 YouTube channel. I really do appreciate the support, and thank you for your patience, given my schedule during the summer picked up very, very high, so I had to delay this episode release on my YouTube channel, at least the recording of of it, so I could have the proper time to give the due diligence of covering all my bases on this very important series, helping a lot of new music fans get into the music of Jamiroquai and further explore over 30 years of musical majesty that is Jamiroquai. Thank you again for watching this episode of the Beginner Guides of Jamiroquai, and I'll see you again really soon with more Jamiroquai related videos here on the Jamiro Fan 2000 YouTube channel. Bye bye everybody, thank you again for the support, and I'll see you around.